All right, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to today's Minerva CQ webinar, the top 5 CX trends for 2024. My name is Rod McLean with Minerva CQ, and I'm excited to be joined by a couple of industry luminaries, as I would say, for today's webinar, Blake Morgan and Daniel Hong. Blake, for those of you that don't know, Blake's been called the Queen of CX by Meta. She's a customer experience futurist and author of 3 books on customer experience, with a 4th book coming out very, very soon, called The 8 Laws of Customer-Focused Leadership: The New Rules for Building a Business Around Today's Customer. This will be published by HarperCollins. And she is also the host of the Modern Customer podcast. Blake is also a regular contributor to Forbes publication, and is a local here down in Southern California. So joining her will be Daniel Hong. Daniel's an industry veteran with over 20 years of experience in contact center and customer experience. Daniel's currently our CMO, Chief Marketing Officer here at Minerva CQ, and a collaborative AI platform that enables today's workforce to effortlessly blend with AI during voice and digital conversations to improve agent and customer experiences. Prior to joining Minerva CQ, Daniel was actually the VP of Research Director with Forrester's CRM Customer Service Program. Clients create omni-channel, agent assist, and conversational AI strategies to improve customer and agent experiences. Daniel's been quoted in various publications, including the Wall Street Journal, The Economist, New York Times, NPR, and various other ones. So before we go ahead and really get jumping in here, just a few notes. There is a Q&A option you guys should see on the top of your screen. Feel free, as we're going through the presentation, to chat in those questions. And at the end of the content that Blake and Daniel will be presenting, we'll go ahead and address those questions given the amount of time that we have. All right, so let's jump in. What we're really going to cover today, and then I'm going to pass the baton over to Blake and Daniel. We're going to really cover the top 5 CX trends that we're seeing for 2024, and really quickly running through these. Number one, that CX is really going to improve in 2024. Number two, Gen AI is actually going to pave the way for the age of collaborative AI. Number 3, AI agent assist is going to be increasing, but there's going to be some failures along with that. Number 4, companies finally realize that surveys are not really the answer to better customer service. And number 5, human-led and omni-channel become even more critical. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton over to Blake to kick us off. Blake?
All right, thanks, Rod. Hey, everybody, welcome. I'm really excited to be here with you, with Daniel and Rod, to talk about customer experience. I have been tracking these trends since 2014, and perhaps you found this webinar through the Forbes article that Daniel and I created to talk about some of the trends that we're seeing. And customer experience has come a really long way. I met Daniel over 15 years ago, when I had just started out in the industry, and he was already managing a whole team of analysts. But customer experience as a category has just grown by leaps and bounds. Thanks to COVID, so many companies really expedited their digital investments, and that is still paying off today. However, customer experience has not just been a straight shot uphill. It's definitely had some stops and starts in the last few years, because all of you watching, you're all customers. And it's likely even in the last few years, you've had great customer experiences and you've had terrible customer experiences. Service has taken a bit of a hit in the last few years. You might notice that when you go to a store, it's hard to find a person, that wait times are up in the call center, that it's hard to, even when you go to a restaurant, maybe the waiter isn't smiling at you. So I would say that personally, all of us have noticed, at least in the US, that customer service has not been as strong. And there are a few reasons for that, but most importantly, companies they were so tired from investing in customer experience during COVID, they just wanted a breather. And Daniel and I know there's no breather in customer experience. Every day is game day. But what we're seeing as we look toward the first trend is that customer experience, we're anticipating improvements this year thanks to investments that many practitioners have been making in 2022 and 2023. Daniel, next slide, please. And so customer experience, it's two things. It's the culture of the company, the psychology, the leadership development, culture. You could call it je ne sais quoi if you speak French, I don't know what, but it's that thing where from the top down, leaders are excited to serve customers. They're the ones working in the contact center. And that culture is contagious. And all the employees down to the call center, if you have that customer centric culture, then it's just in the bones of the company. So there's the psychology and there's the technology. So not only do we have a smile in our voice when we talk to customers, not only are we excited for the opportunity to make a customer's life easier and better, but we're investing on the back end. We're reducing inefficiencies with technology. We're improving our operations. And so what the research shows us, and there's a lot of research that points in this direction, but I'll just call out one that I like from TELUS International, found that 72% of leaders spent more on digital customer experience in 2023 than 2022. And almost 70% of these practitioners are increasing their digital budgets by 25%. And so the research is out there that customers prefer not having to talk to us. They don't want to call a call center. If they can solve an issue on their own, they're happy to. And so the technology investments have been absolutely critical. And that's why Daniel and I believe that customer experience is trending upward this year. Forrester also found that there will be an overall global improvement, an uptick in customer experience, that companies will work to make customers' lives easier and better. And this will be led by a handful of brands that have just consistently made investments and are really working toward creating a more customer-centric experience. Next slide, please. And what I find really exciting about being in this industry now, and many of you watching have been in this industry a really long time, what I find exciting about what's happening today is that increasingly we're able to link that if we invest in customer experience, if we give the contact center money, that we'll actually have a more profitable, financially sound business. What a dream to be able to link investments in the contact center to actual ROI. And I always say, stop advertising and marketing at the Super Bowl, put that $1 million budget into the contact center. Next slide, please. And so I mentioned that increasingly there's more data to point that, yes, if we invest, we're going to make more money. And my friend Brian Sander, who I've known for a long time now, he's the head of customer experience for AAA. AAA, he created a digital self-service program there. And he laughs with me that it wasn't that hard to do, to track the return he made from investing in solving customer problems with self-service and through the AAA app. AAA, if you don't know, many of you have it. If your car needs to be towed, if you have an issue with your car, they have a lot of different products. That's their most popular product, is the roadside service. So he created a digital program for customers to solve their own problems without having to call. And he was able to track that. He saved AAA over $100 million. $100 million. And so I encourage all of you watching this to think of the contact center. Think of it like more of a program manager, a project manager, less like a contact center practitioner, more like you work at a software company and you're thinking more about the narrative you tell about the work that you do, that you are telling a story of making customers' lives easier and better. And by doing that, making your company money and getting all your colleagues excited because you are a change agent, just like Brian Sander. Next slide. All right, Daniel, any thoughts on that first trend yourself?
Yeah. Well, first off, to Brian Sanders, geez, I hope you got a raise. That's amazing. $100 million. That is awesome. Kudos to you. I think a lot of the projects and what people work on in customer experience kind of go unnoticed within the organization. And I think it's, if you're kind of like defending your dissertation, you want to draw a lot of spotlight on the impact of customer experience and what that means, not just immediately in terms of cost reduction or loyalty improvements, but kind of what that means over the long run. Because as we know, CX is a long game. So being able to always kind of tap into that data source and understand like what successful customer experience strategies over the long term and what that means for the company's profitability overall and the company's health. I think that that's really important, and to always shed light on that and let your colleagues know what it is that you're working on. So really having an open culture and really providing perspective into your CX operations, I think is good.
I love that. I think that's a great point. And I think for so long, Daniel, we've just all been thinking about putting out fires instead of being marketers, like bragging about what we're doing and sharing that out, whether that's videos of customers, sharing that out, having a picture in our contact center agents cubicle of a customer and a story, just like really making these things tangible for employees, for C-level.
Yeah.
It's like, remember that show Undercover Boss, where these leaders of these companies go and they just can't believe what's actually happening on the ground. But I always find it's that commitment to the truth, no matter how ugly, that really sets a company apart. And I was recently giving a workshop at a big telecom company, and the leaders asked me, do you think a customer-centric company culture can come from the bottom up? Like, if you just have really amped up, happy contact center agents, can you just change the whole culture? But I believe the answer is no, because again, it's that mix of, it's not just the psychology, that culture, it's also the investments, it's the technology, because culture and technology together makes you a very competitive company.
Which is actually a really good segue into the next trend here. So
Just hit your camera down. Hit your camera down a little bit so I can see your face really good.
Oh,
yay,
okay.
There you are.
All right, there we go.
Perfect.
Right. So another trend that we're seeing is, and to your point of technology and humans kind of coming together for better customer experience, we see that generative AI, aka Gen AI, paves the way for the age of collaborative AI. So what does that all mean? So when it comes to the use of technology in the enterprise, typically a good barometer for that is like its usage and uptake by employees, is to gauge how often we're using it in our everyday lives as consumers, right? So remember the whole consumerization of IT, where employees said, hey, I want my iPhone to work and check my email. So like all the IT had to provide support for all these new devices that employees are bringing in, kind of bring your own device. Now, let's use that lens today. There's a lot of Gen AI being used in the places and the things we use every day as consumers. So Amazon reviews, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but they're using generative AI. Instead of reading through like 50 different Amazon reviews, or 100, or maybe 1,000, not that anyone would read 1,000, but it does a good job of summarizing what the reviews say, and that makes it for a better experience for the consumer. Microsoft Teams, and you can use their Copilot to summarize meetings and have action items there, right? If you're an intern, I'm sure you're really enjoying using the Copilot capability there. Spotify has a personalized DJ. So it's a Gen AI powered DJ that announces and plays specific music at different times during the day based on your history and preferences. And also in our cars, we're going to see this. It hasn't come out yet, but Volkswagen will be the first car manufacturer to have ChatGPT in their cars, and that provides for better conversational experiences and not just command and control, which is what we have with the voice controls right now in cars. But you could ask it, tell me about the history of Lake Tahoe and tell me about Donner Pass. So I think that we're seeing more as consumers in our everyday lives of like AI just being intertwined with those touch points that we're using. In addition to that, it's being quite, Gen AI is being used quite heavily in some countries. So there, India, Australia, US, UK, these are pretty staggeringly high numbers, especially in India. So you have a lot of people there leveraging and trying out generative AI. And these AI users are what you call super users, meaning the majority of them use the technology frequently and believe they are well on their way to mastering it. And it tips higher for the younger demographics in the workforce. 65% of generative AI users are millennials or Gen Z, and 72% of them are employed. Now, from consumers using the everyday apps and appliances that use Gen I to using Gen I themselves, and then Gen I being pushed by what we see here, 91% of enterprises in efforts to increase productivity and efficiency, while at the same time reducing costs, we're definitely trending towards what's this notion of collaborative AI, where actual jobs and the user experience of the applications and tools they use will incorporate by design how employees will do their jobs and be augmented by AI. So to kind of double click into collaborative AI. Well, what is it, right? It's when AI works in conjunction with humans to achieve a goal. It emphasizes cooperation and synergy between both human and machine intelligence. And this often leads to more effective problem solving, decision making, and improved outcomes. We saw collaborative AI being used in chess years ago with like Gary Kasparov and him and like a computer taking on other chess players and computers. It just raised the level of play. We see it in a lot of other verticals as well, and we'll go into that in just a little bit. But because we're using generative AI so much as consumers, we're using more in the workplace, and we're just using it to improve what it is in terms of our performance. What we will notice starting this year is actual design. When someone is going to have a job description and there'll be like you could leverage AI, that kind of comes together. So it'll be embedded within the job. And then the whole notion of collaborative AI becomes even more palpable as starting this year and moving out over the next several years. So how do you kind of think about collaborative AI? Well, think about there's a lot of use cases out there that we're actually seeing collaborative AI from driving. Think about like Uber. An Uber driver is going to knows where you're going, but while they're driving and they're getting directions from the Uber app, they're using their own human intuition to make the call saying, oh, this is definitely going to have more traffic. I shouldn't probably go through here. The road has too many potholes or something like that. So they're using their own judgment in addition to the Uber app to get you from point A to point B in the best route possible. We're also seeing it seeing it used in healthcare for healthcare diagnosis, in manufacturing to identify certain bottlenecks, but then the human intuition is there to override certain advice that maybe the AI may be surfacing up. We see it in research quite a lot, in life sciences and financial services, and of course, customer service with like agent assist technologies, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. But just to kind of conclude on this, in my point, I'm curious to hear your thoughts as well, Blake, is collaborative AI is a notion of just humans working with AI, right? And then that in and of itself requires a lot of design thinking of how to make that better to improve kind of the performance of both. And I think we're just really at the tip of the iceberg this year, but we'll start noticing that in the mindsets of the people implementing new jobs and kind of changing jobs where AI becomes a really important part of the role. Blake, any thoughts?
Yeah, so you and I have been preparing for this webinar for quite a long time, and I spent some time on Google Trends just looking at, well, how much are people searching even for the term customer service AI? And you just see with the advent of ChatGPT and everything in like the second half of 2023, or all through pretty much 2023, just a huge increase in interest and people searching for customer service AI. So I think right now what I'm seeing just at events and otherwise just a scramble, like we know this is so valuable. We don't know if the use cases, we don't know exactly what it will look like. So right now there's just, it almost feels like a panic to understand this huge advantage, this business accelerant. Like Brian Sander, my friend who I talked about, he calls customer experience jet fuel for your business. It's a business accelerant. So if CX is jet fuel, like AI, if handled in the right way in customer service, obviously could be a huge advantage. But right now it's still this awkward period where people just, they don't quite have all the answers. So they're just exploring and really searching.
Yeah, which once again, it's a really good segue into the next trend here. And this is where we'll start seeing some failures with AI, specifically for contact center. So a trend that we see this year, AI agent assists will increase, meaning the deployments will increase, but there'll be some failures with that. So for those of you who maybe don't know what agent assist is, well, it's the best thing since sliced bread, right? It's real-time AI guidance for customer service reps, where the customer and agent conversation is transcribed in real time. It's literally within a few hundred milliseconds to be precise. And the AI magically summons up dialogue suggestions, behavioral cues, and knowledge. Knowledge could be like knowledge-based articles, links, videos, and even the right answers. And these all help guide the agent to successful customer service resolution or a sales outcome. Quite often, each interaction is auto-summarized today via Gen AI. So you could take like a 12-minute call and then summarize it in like 3 sentences and a few pithy types of notes, and then that gets injected back into the CRM. And then some case studies show today some pretty good results. 30% reduction in time to that first response, 3 times 300% gains in agent productivity, improvements in average handle time, improvements in NPS and CSAT, and faster onboarding for new agents, which is always an issue because contact centers always seem to struggle with employee retention and just having to onboard constantly. Also, when you're looking at this from kind of a market penetration and market maturity standpoint, Agent Assist is moving from the proverbial emerging to an applied technology. So here's a Gartner hype cycle to the left, right? And how Gartner defines or calls Agent Assist, they call that the connected rep. So this is the Gartner hype cycle, and they're kind of in the early stages right now, according to Gartner, and this is from August of 2023. Now, in addition to that, you have Moore's chasm here. And I'm going to also use another market research firm, Metrigy. And Metrigy, in a survey of contact centers that they did in late part of last year, it's from their 2023-2024 CX optimization study, they found that 58% of contact centers that they surveyed are fully staffed. That's pretty amazing, right? But you double click into that, they went on to ask, well, how many of you guys are actually using Agent Assist? 65% of those contact centers that are fully staffed said they are using Agent Assist, which is astoundingly high. And so when you kind of do the math, 38% of the contact centers are using Agent Assist. So if you take that and you kind of cross-reference a little bit with the Gartner, right? Sorry to Frankenstein some of the market industry stats here, but it does kind of point to one thing. We're kind of at the tip of early adopters crossing the chasm into early majority. So we will start seeing a lot more deployments of Agent Assist over the next few years. And it's just a lot easier to implement these days. And whether it's through a best of breed provider, a CCaaS platform, or CRM platform, a lot of them provide some type of Agent Assist technologies. So here's a half empty though. So we see 1 in 4 Agent Assist deployments that are going to fail this year. So 91% of companies are really focused on improving efficiency and productivity and reducing costs. I talked about that stat earlier, and that's what that's why they're investing in technologies like Gen AI. But at a high level, while these sound good, just 23% want to enhance relationships with customers and clients, which, as we know, in the world of CX, that's where you want to get to. That's the hardest thing to achieve. So today, I talked to a lot of companies, and we've come across a lot of these companies have lofty goals and projections for operational gains in average handle time, in improving repeat calls and transfer rates and first contact resolution. But when it comes down to it, they're deriving these goals at too high of a level. A lot of the companies have blunt instruments when it comes to understanding why customers are calling. So they have like call dispositions. They know what types of calls they're getting, like billing issues. But when you double click into it, most of the companies can't really home in on what the customer intent is and the sub intent. They can't measure average handle time and other KPIs by certain interaction types. And they can't understand the root causes behind prolonged interactions while surfacing the problem areas in the conversation, and to be able to do this at scale. And without these levels of insights, configuring and deploying an agent assist solution to address those problems is going to fall flat. And we've seen this. Also, the value of agent assist diminishes among agents, really because of poorly designed agent assist experiences. And there's plenty out there right now. We're kind of still early stages of the market adoption. And the job of an agent is difficult enough with angry customers unleashing their frustrations on them, and having an AI technology point out the obvious with these behavioral cues like customers frustrated, show some empathy, give a personal greeting, say the customer's first name. It's just going to be met with eye rolls and disgruntled employees, especially the more tenured ones. And imagine hearing these types of behavioral cues or seeing them on your screen. You take 45 calls per hour, 25 to 35 calls per day, and maybe more than 150 times. So it's just, it'll annoy the agent, and consequently, what we've seen is some poorly designed agent assist solutions out there. We've seen companies starting to turn them off because they were not providing value to the agents as they originally had intended, or they're scaling back on some of the agent assists, saying, hey, I just want to use this for the new hires and getting the agents onboarded. So that's what we've seen, and that's why we see 1 in 4 agent assist deployments will fail this year, because they're not double clicking to the right areas and measuring the performance correctly. Okay, so what can you do about it? I think NTT Data gets it right. They nail it with this quote here. This is from their latest study. But once organizations fully understand their CX environment and their customers, they can focus on more efficient customer engagement. So when you are talking to these agent assist technology providers, you need to conduct a discovery. You need to obtain a baseline of the customer intents. It has to be at an intent level, and then identify the problem areas. Why are they calling? What happens during that call that makes the handle time so long? From there, you can figure out the metrics to be used to measure the success of the agent solution, whether that is average handle time by call type, and at the intent level, and even more granular level of like keystrokes, screen capture, employee satisfaction, like what really dig into the metrics and establish those to be able to track the performance of the agent assist solution. And then from there, design the right collaborative AI experience by layering in the integrations, domain-specific LLMs, intent models, workflows if you have them, and design those specifically, and improve for the problem areas that you've defined, roll it out with a smaller agent population, and then scale it out. So those are typically the steps that we've seen for agent assist that will be successful. Blake, just wanted to get your thoughts on the agent assist. 1 in 4 number will fail. Have you come across any companies, or what are your thoughts about that?
Last year, I went to Wisconsin, to Madison, Wisconsin. It's so beautiful, by the way. Part of the benefits of of having this job as a speaker, you travel around. And I went to meet with a contact center team of an insurance company. And the manager was so frustrated with his team. He said, "You know what, Blake? I don't know what to do. I want my team to cross-sell. I want them to upsell our customers in the contact center, but they just don't have the social skills." So I dug a little deeper into what was happening. And he said, "You know what, Blake? We don't have a script. We just want our agents to be free flowing and be people and create a great customer experience." But then he showed me the scorecard, and the scorecard was inspired by Bain, and it literally was 5 pages, and it was so complicated that I realized the agents were so tripped up trying to follow the scorecard, and every sentence they said, how they said it, keywords, that it was a script. So while they didn't have any scripts, which is a contact center no-no, they had the scorecard that was tripping up the agents so badly. It reminds me of Southwest Airlines and some of the challenges this year with the technology system breaking down. Actually, last year during the holidays, where a lot of luggage was lost, and their brand really took a big hit. And they say that the CEO, Bob Jordan, he used to be the head accountant, the CFO. I think this is a problem with the lens of people that run customer experience and contact centers when they're running it so operationally efficient that they forget they're in the relationships business. And I think that even with agent assist, if we can start thinking about the experience we're giving to our agents, many of our agents have 40 desktop windows open at one time. It's very stressful. If we think about the experience we're creating for our agents, and then we go backwards, we back into our metrics from the customer's perspective, we're going to have a different result. But if we keep applying yesterday's thinking to tomorrow's technology, we're not going to have success.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, talking to very large telco, he had mentioned this agent assist stuff is good. It's great. It's good for these new agents that we have, to onboard them, to get them to have the confidence to be able to take on these new calls. But it's the experienced agents where they may not need them. How can we get enough value in the agent assist so it'll help them in their day-to-day without them just kind of turning it off and not using it? So where we believe, like at Minerva, where the market is going, is like definitely in the call summarization area, where they don't have to like summarize every call. That one you could really just leverage Gen AI to do that, and then have some other additional stuff on top of that. But to your point, like understanding the agent experience needs to incorporate not only the new agents, but also the seasoned veterans and those agents, and how they could drive value. I think it's really important, and that's kind of the design thinking that you need for it to be successful.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Feedback is always good, but how about feedback here? Over to you.
Yeah, my favorite trend. That's when I went, I was at the Santa Barbara Zoo with my kids last year, and I remember sitting on one of there's a little train that goes, the Santa Barbara Zoo is so beautiful. It's supposed to be the most beautiful zoo in the US, I think. It's right near the ocean. It's small, and all the animals are so happy. Anyway, so I'm on this little train, and I see this QR code with a survey link about the experience at the zoo. And we had to wait a bit for the train. We almost didn't get on. And I thought for 2 seconds, should I respond and fill out this survey? And then I thought, nah, they're never going to respond to me. How many of you watching this webinar really believe when you review a company and you give them a poor customer survey score that they're going to actually reach out and say, "Oh, so sorry this happened. How can we do better?" And I think for so long, NPS, we're checking the box, but we're not really doing anything in a way that makes sense, because we just want to sleep well at night and think, okay, we checked the box, we have our NPS score, it's really good, but we're leaving a lot of opportunity on the table to do better. And I think that if we actually go back into more qualitative research, we start picking up the phone more, we start actually getting in front of customers. The CEO is working in the contact center. I like to mention Lindsay Snyder of In-N-Out, the unlikely CEO who inherited In-N-Out, the beloved burger chain here in the US, actually ate there on Saturday, inherited at the age of 28 because her family, there were some tragedies. She is the model leader, the customer and employee-centric leader that is literally flipping burgers next to employees. And that, I think that getting out of the ivory tower, getting out of the office, flipping burgers next to employees, taking calls next to contact center agents, but doing it all the time. This is the modern customer-centric company. Next slide, please, Daniel. So our fourth trend is that Daniel and I really believe that surveys and some of these NPS scores that we've long depended on to give us a barometer for how we're doing as a company, we are potentially, it's a dangerous thing to do, to give customer experience lip service by using these outdated surveys and metrics that we're not actually doing anything with, and they're just making us feel better. But you would have a better result if you just talk to customers and you actually, I had a discussion with the former CEO of Honeywell, David Cote. David Cote did this incredible turnaround of the B2B multinational conglomerate Honeywell. And what he did, the CEO got really involved, and he said, Blake, you know what I would do? I would just call 50 customers myself because I couldn't trust the reports. And I would just ask them two things. What are we doing well and what can we be doing better? And with him, the CEO of this huge company, so involved, you can bet that he did a complete turnaround. The stock, he improved by leaps and bounds. It was the Cinderella story of the business world at Honeywell. So I am not in love with NPS and surveys. I think we're using it as a way to feel good when we're not actually getting the data that we need. Qualtrics did a survey of almost 30,000 customers, and the survey found that customers are not filling out surveys anymore. They're not filling out surveys. You know why? Because customers are smart. They're smart and they don't like their time wasted. We are wasting their time when we ask them to fill out surveys and we don't contact them directly and ask them and double click and say, what could we have done better? But now the good news is, especially with AI and machine learning, we have so much unstructured feedback that we can plow through to understand how we're doing, with analytics and across the web, all different places, that we don't have to bother and waste customers' time asking them fill out the NPS. The best is when you get from the hospital these long snail mail surveys that I hope none of you watching fill out, because gosh, what a waste of time. Even though the hospitals need our feedback, isn't there a better way, a more real-time way? I'll give you an example of UCLA Health. I've recently moved to LA. We are at UCLA Health, and they ask for feedback right after an experience. They send me a text. Or if I have a health issue or my kids do, the doctor will personally message me through my chart app. That's the name of the app, and say, are you still sick? How did it go? Did the medicine work? Like, what a phenomenon to make sure the patient is okay after. But it's that obsession with the minutia, with understanding their real and raw data, with talking to customers, with actually liking customers, being interested genuinely, that you cannot run a customer-centric company if the leaders are not also double-clicking into customer experience and really being interested. So yes, surveys, I think, are on their way out. There's still a role for them, but increasingly, as companies have gotten very lazy with doing anything with them, I believe that surveys are on their way out, and we have to think of alternative methods to get a gauge on how we're doing. Next slide, please. Daniel, what do you think? Do you ever fill out surveys personally?
I do, just because I've been in market research most of my career, that I have to. So every single time I get a survey, I will fill it out. But I'm like that,
gosh.
A small percentage of people that
What
do
a
that.
nice person you are.
But to your point, we have seen some other methods here. and it was called as synthetic measures, or we call it passive measures. So you are able to kind of get to voice of the customer through some ways, like how are they interacting with you through the conversation and extracting like kind of their emotion. Did the actual did they issue get resolved, right? Like how do they feel about it? Being able to extract that from some of the kind of free flow conversations that customers and agents have, or customers are having with web chat agents. In addition to that, you're able to map out like what's a perfect journey, what's a golden journey. Customer does this, this, and this. They talk to the agent here and here. They do self-service, so on and so forth. And being able to kind of model around that golden journey where an NPS could be super high or CSAT could be really high. How many variations or different steps, like a standard deviation from that, are you? Being able, like when a customer doesn't get that done, what is the correlation to lower NPS? And you could do that at scale these days, I think, with unstructured data. And then with like Gen AI, that even kind of gives a little bit more in terms of the ability to have some summarizations and a little bit more insights there. Of course, you have to build out the LLMs. Everything's kind of custom within your own enterprise, and how your customers engage with you, the terminology being used is different from company to company. But I think there'll be a lot of innovation there where, yeah, I agree. There's a lot of survey fatigue. There could be other ways of you gauging what the customer experience is and kind of getting their thoughts, and also kind of getting immersed within your company as well, and rolling up your sleeves, and just, if you're a senior leader in your organization, go out there and just talk to your customers and kind of hang around with them, so you get
Yeah,
that proverbial line of sight.
great point.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Now, speaking of engaging with customers, our fifth trend, right? Human-led and omni-channel become even more critical. So for so long, we've been talking about omni-channel. It's kind of been more than a decade. And when we came across this data point here, by the way, shout out to Sheila McGee Smith, a friend, an industry friend, who put this on LinkedIn and highlighted the study by NTT Data. And NTT Data does an amazing job every year, a benchmark study on contact centers. And this is from that. And what I like to kind of show here, we've talked about omnichannel for so long, but it's really interesting that when we talked about omnichannel, we talked about the younger generations. Yeah, we know that they want digital, got to support digital. And then for the older generations, maybe the baby boomers, the greatest generation, and part of like Gen X, we have to still have more voice and face-to-face type of interactions. But from 2021, kind of the pandemic era, to 2023, there have been some changes in terms of the channel preferences. For the most part, everyone 40 and over is kind of the same, but on the younger generations, the millennials and the Gen Z, there have been some shifts. For example, and it's kind of hard to see there, but it's color coded, but I'll summarize it for you. The Gen Zs are using virtual assistants a lot more now than they have before, not so much social media. And that's also kind of the same with the millennials. But what's really interesting is when you look to the right over there, there's a lot of fragmentation. It's like almost equal distribution there in terms of like the fragmentation. And what that means is the 40 and younger, they want to engage with you on like every single channel. So like when we're talking about omni-channel, it's not just about omni-channel to support different types of channels for different age groups. We're having a rise of a generation or two that want to engage with you on every channel, which means you have to have a better omni-channel strategy than you've ever had before. You have to kind of unify all those different touch points. And also, I'd like to note, like from this data here, 58% of the touch points in terms of the popularity, popularity channels, right? 58% are digital: email, web chat, social, virtual assistants, and self-service. Some of you may argue email is not digital, but I just put that in there. If we talked about this maybe 5 years ago, it would not have been mostly digital. So this is kind of an inflection point. In those digital areas, we are noticing a huge uptake with generative AI in all those areas, because think about a Gen AI powered chatbot, right? I don't think you could go anywhere in a contact center conference without seeing a Gen AI powered chatbot / virtual assistant, or Gen AI being used for self-service on the web. 76% human-led. That's what people across all age groups in total want to engage with. They want to engage with humans, and they want to engage with them mostly in digital. But you can't forget about voice, because 73.1% of all interactions, according to Metrigy, use voice initially or after a digital interaction. So net, if you are doing omni-channel and you have to like kind of improve your digital touch points, and they have improved quite a bit, you can't forget about voice, because voice is still going to be that last resort. When they went to 2 or 3 different channels in digital and they can't get whatever it is that you need to get done there, and pick up that phone, and they're going to come in hot and they will be frustrated. So you have to be able to give your agents enough support there, enough breadcrumbs to know what it is that the customer is doing in other channels to help resolve and maybe disarm the customer and make it a better experience, and to help retain them and improve loyalty. So with that, balance, right? So like balance people, tech, processes, and measures. Brands can't ignore the need to, especially now, you saw the data, and that the equal fragmentation is challenging. It's great. It's worrying if I was a contact center person, where we really need to, or customer experience person, to really round out and have our best efforts in all the different channels. So support digital and omni-channel to better serve the younger generations and customers who engage you on those multiple different channels. And think about how, from a technology perspective, and once again, just bringing back to how Blake has highlighted, really, there's so much more in technology that we can do, but you just have to be smart about your technology investments. Simplify the stack. There's still a lot of companies out there that have different channels, different teams supporting those channels, and reporting is specific to one channel, and no one knows what they're doing. You can kind of bring that all together by simplifying the stack, having a central platform where you're able to disaggregate application logic and business rules, so you have like a write once and deploy across. And then you're able to systematically do that from a technology side, where you could get reporting across, but also you have to align the teams together so everyone knows what it is that they're doing. If someone's gonna implement an awesome chatbot, right, and self-service rates go up, that means the contact center people here with their live agents, their average handle time might go up, because it's a little bit more complex. So you guys have to kind of like work together in order to have the overall better customer experience, and be unified to make sure that your metrics change in accordance to whatever success there is in a certain channel. Blake, I know I spoke a lot, but I want to get your thoughts on kind of the omni-channel point of view, and the digital, and what any more double clicks into the data that kind of caught your eye.
Yeah, I like the idea of balance. I think everything is your business. So you have to treat all your digital channels as if they're all critical, because you never know who is where. And so that being said, everything matters. Every channel matters. Every day is game day. And it's just a mindset shift that we all have to get used to. But I think that's a great one to wrap up on.